My name is Emily, and I'm a 30-year-old woman who once believed in fairy tale endings. 2 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when I met Eric, the man who would become my husband. This is our story, a journey of love, trust, and eventually, betrayal within what seemed like a perfect marriage. It was a regular Saturday morning when fate brought me to the corner cafe. I was absorbed in a David Warner novel when Eric walked in. He immediately stood out with his confident presence and warm smile. "Is that Warner's latest?" he asked, glancing at my book. His voice was friendly and curious. "Yeah, I just started it. He's always a good read," I replied, surprised at how easily we began talking. We chatted about our favorite authors, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Eric had a way of making me laugh. His humor was both sharp and charming. As we talked for hours, it felt like we were old friends catching up, not strangers who had just met. In the weeks that followed, Eric and I grew closer. We shared a love for music, especially old jazz, and enjoyed exploring hidden bookstores around the city. He was charming, respectful, and attentive. I found myself looking forward to our dates, each one leaving me more enchanted. One evening, as we walked along the river, Eric's tone became serious. "Emily, I've never felt this way before. I think I'm falling for you," he confessed under the dim streetlights. His words filled me with warmth. "I feel the same, Eric. You're unlike anyone I've ever met," I admitted, my heart racing with excitement and a bit of fear. 3 months passed, and our relationship grew even stronger. One night, during a cozy dinner at my apartment, Eric proposed. It was a simple yet deeply sincere moment, and I said yes without hesitation. I loved him and believed in our future together. But the joy of our engagement was soon mixed with worry when it was time to meet Eric's parents. His mother, Julie, was stern, with eyes that seemed to judge my every move. His father was friendlier, but he was serious, especially when it came to marriage. During a formal dinner at their house, Eric's father brought up the idea of a prenuptial agreement. "It's just practical," he said plainly. The request caught me off guard, especially given my past experience with a cheating ex-boyfriend. I understood the need for a prenuptial agreement, so I agreed, but I had one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater owes the other $200,000, I said, steadying my voice. Eric looked surprised but also impressed. "I promise, Emily, I'd never cheat on you," he said sincerely. I wanted to believe him and trust that this time, my heart was safe. Our wedding was beautiful, filled with laughter, dancing, and promises of forever. The first year of our marriage felt like a dream. We traveled to romantic places, enjoyed quiet evenings at home, and supported each other's goals. Eric wasn't just my husband, he was my best friend, my confidant. After the excitement of the wedding, we settled into married life more smoothly than I had expected. That first year felt like we were living in a bubble of happiness, untouched by the outside world. Our honeymoon in Lyon was magical. Walking along the Verneysen, we were just two lovebirds in a city of love. "Can you believe we're here?" I asked Eric one evening as we watched the Lyon Cathedral light up. He pulled me close and said, "With you, I can believe anything. This is just the start for us, Emily." Those days were filled with laughter, romantic dinners, and dreams of our future together. We returned home with a suitcase full of memories and a bond that felt unbreakable. Back home, our days fell into a comfortable routine. Eric would kiss me goodbye every morning before work, and I'd have dinner ready when he got back. We talked about everything and nothing, our conversations stretching late into the night. One evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, Eric said, I never thought I'd be this happy just doing everyday things like washing dishes." I playfully splashed some water at him. "That's because you have an amazing wife. It's all about good company, I teased. He laughed, catching the water in his hands. Absolutely. Marrying you was the best decision of my life. Despite our happiness, there was growing pressure from others to start a family. At family gatherings, Eric's mom, Julie, would often drop not so subtle hints. So, when are we going to hear some good news? She asked during one Monday lunch, her voice full of expectation. I tried to play it off with a joke, saying, "Oh, you'll be the first to know when there's news." But her persistence only grew over time, and it started to wear on me. Eric noticed my discomfort and reassured me, "Don't let my mom get to you. We'll start a family when we're ready, not a minute sooner." Despite the pressure, our first year of marriage was wonderful. We celebrated our first anniversary with a quiet dinner at home, and Eric surprised me with a necklace I had admired months ago. "Happy anniversary, Emily. Here's to many more years of happiness," he said, his eyes full of love. I felt tears in my eyes as I thanked him. Thank you, Eric. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in life. That night, as we cuddled on the couch, I felt incredibly lucky. I had a husband who loved me, a cozy home, and a future that looked bright. As our third year of marriage began, the pressure from Eric's family, especially his mother Julie, started to get to me. It wasn't just about starting a family anymore, her criticisms touched every part of our lives. Julie had a way of showing her disapproval, often disguised as helpful comments. Every visit turned into a nightmare for me. One afternoon, while I was setting the table for lunch, she walked into the kitchen and looked at the food with a disapproving frown. "Is this what you're serving? A bit simple, don't you think?" Julie renounced, her tone full of disdain. I clenched my jaw, trying to stay calm. "I thought we'd enjoy something light today," I replied. She just sniffed, muttering under her breath about proper meals and good housekeeping. Her comments weren't just about my cooking. She found fault in everything I did, from how I decorated the house to how I spent my free time. Nothing was off limits. One evening, while Eric and I were relaxing in the living room, Julie decided to give her opinion. "You know, Emily, if Eric gave me the money he spends on you, I could hire a proper cleaner and a cook." Eric looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. His silence felt like a betrayal. I was angry but managed to say, "Well, Julie, I'm doing my best here." What hurt the most was how Eric's attitude started to change. He began echoing his mother's criticisms, though more subtly. After one of Julie's visits, Eric casually mentioned, "Mom might have a point about the house. Maybe we should consider getting some help." I felt a pang of hurt and frustration. "So you think?" I couldn't handle it either. "No, that's not what I meant." Eric tried to backtrack, but the damage was already done. The constant criticism and Eric's growing distance were putting a strain on our marriage. We started arguing over small things, and our once easy conversations turned tense. After one particularly heated argument, I found myself asking, "What happened to us, Eric? We used to be on the same team." Eric ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I don't know, Emily. Everything just feels so complicated now." That night, I went to bed feeling lonely and misunderstood. Julie's negative comments had not only invaded my home but were also creeping into our marriage, making me wonder if our love was strong enough to survive this constant negativity. As we entered the fourth year of our marriage, I started to feel uneasy. The bright flame of our love seemed to flicker under the shadow of doubt and mistrust. It began with phone calls, several of them from someone named Gary. I noticed how Eric's behavior changed whenever that name appeared on his phone. One evening, while we were watching TV, his phone rang again, showing Gary's name. Eric quickly silenced it and put the phone away, but not before I saw the nervous glance he gave me. "Who's Gary?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my heart was pounding. Oh, just a new guy at work. No one important, Eric replied, but his voice sounded too relaxed, like he had rehearsed his answer. His behavior started to change. He began coming home late from work with flimsy and inconsistent excuses. He also started dressing differently, trading his casual clothes for sharp, tailored suits. Working late again? I asked one night as he got ready to leave, noticing how dressed up he was. Yeah, big project, he said, avoiding my eyes. Don't wait up. One day, my frustration reached a breaking point. As Eric was about to leave for another late night at work, I confronted him. This isn't like you, Eric. What's really going on? I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. Eric sighed, his face showing a mix of guilt and annoyance. I told you, it's just work. Why can't you trust me? Eric said, frustrated. Because you're hiding something. You're never here, and when you are, it's like you're a million miles away. I shot back, my eyes filling with tears. Eric didn't respond. He just grabbed his coat and left, leaving me standing there, feeling more alone than ever. That night, as I lay in our empty bed, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in this limbo of doubt and suspicion. I needed to know the truth, whatever it was. The next morning, I called a private detective. It felt like a betrayal, but the constant worry and uncertainty were eating me alive. I needed answers, no matter what they revealed about the man I thought I knew. The days after contacting the detective were filled with anxiety and anticipation. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying to keep everything normal while my world was quietly falling apart. Then the call came, and with it, the shattering of my last hope. Mrs. Joseph, we have conclusive evidence. I'm afraid your suspicions were correct. The detective's voice was serious, heavy with the weight of the news. He explained that Eric had been having an affair. The mysterious Gary on his phone was actually a woman. My heart sank as he detailed their meetings, providing timestamps and photos. It was undeniable. I sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling a mix of devastation and vindication. My worst fears were now cold, hard facts. Despite the pain, I decided not to confront Eric immediately. I needed more than just proof of his infidelity. I needed to understand the full extent of his deceit. One evening, as I passed by his home office, I overheard a conversation that sent chills down my spine. Eric was talking to his mother, Julie. Mom, I'm planning to end it with Emily after your birthday. Eric's voice was cold, lacking any affection he once had for me. Oh, that's wise, dear. Just make sure she gets me a nice 62 birthday present before you drop the bomb, Julie replied, her voice so callous it took my breath away. I leaned against the wall, feeling sick. Not only was my husband unfaithful, but he and his mother were plotting against me, waiting to use me for one last expensive gift before discarding me. Fueled by a mix of anger and resolve, I knew what I had to do. I decided to play along, acting as if nothing was wrong while secretly gathering more evidence of Eric's infidelity. The detective provided me with everything: photos, videos, and even audio recordings. I was building my case, preparing for the moment I would strike back. Each night, as I lay in bed next to the man who had betrayed me, a plan began to form. I would wait until after Julie's birthday, letting them believe they had outsmarted me. But when they least expected it, I would reveal everything and turn the tables. As Julie's 62 birthday approached, I put on a mask of ignorance, pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was filled with anger, betrayal, and a fierce determination to see my plan through. A few days before the birthday, Julie casually mentioned her upcoming celebration during a family dinner. So, Emily, I'm expecting a grand 62 birthday. You must have planned something special for me, she said with a sly smile, clearly anticipating a lavish gift. Keeping my emotions in check, I replied with fake enthusiasm, Of course, Julie. I've arranged a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. It'll be a night to remember. Her eyes lit up with delight, not realizing the trap I was setting. Oh, how wonderful. I can't wait. Just a small family gathering, right? Yes, very intimate and exclusive, just for close family. I confirmed, my words laced with hidden irony. Later that night, Eric approached me, suspicion in his voice. That's quite a generous plan for Mom's birthday. Are you sure about this? I looked at him, keeping my composure. Absolutely. It's a significant birthday, and I want to do something special for her. Eric seemed satisfied but puzzled by my willingness to indulge his mother. As the day of the dinner drew near, I made the final arrangements. I confirmed the booking in Julie's name, rechecked the guest list, and ensured everything was set for the grand evening. On the surface, I was the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law, but underneath, I was ready to expose the betrayal and deceit that had poisoned our marriage. The night before the dinner, as I lay in bed, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. I was hours away from turning the tables on Eric and Julie. They thought they were using me for one last benefit before discarding me, but little did they know, I was the one in control now. The evening of Julie's 62nd birthday was set in a luxurious restaurant, every detail meticulously planned to reflect the grandeur of the occasion. As Julie basked in the luxury, she had no idea what was about to unfold. I played the role of the gracious daughter-in-law, hiding my inner turmoil behind a practiced smile. As dinner came to an end, the waiter presented the bill. It was $6,200. I reached for my card with a steady hand, even though my heart was pounding. After I swiped the card, I glanced around the table. Julie had a satisfied smirk, and Eric looked uneasy. Thank you for such a wonderful evening, Emily. This is truly generous, Julie said, her voice dripping with insincerity. Then Eric leaned in, his voice full of mockery. By the way, Emily, I want a divorce. The words hit me hard, but I refused to show my pain. Julie quickly added, well then, I guess you should leave. This is a family gathering after all. Without a word, I stood up and left the restaurant, keeping my dignity intact despite the storm inside me. As I walked away, I pulled out my phone and canceled the payment. Then, with a few taps, I blocked the shared account, ensuring Eric couldn't cover the cost either. Back at home, I packed my belongings quickly, feeling the finality of my actions. I was leaving this chapter of my life behind, stepping into an uncertain but hopeful future. Soon, my phone started ringing nonstop. I answered, and Julie's voice, shrill with rage and panic, filled my ears. The payment didn't go through. The restaurant staff called the police. What have you done? Her words were full of anger and disbelief, but I stayed silent, letting her rant. This was their doing, their betrayal and manipulation coming back to haunt them. After hanging up, I looked around the empty house. It was once filled with dreams and love, but now it was just a hollow shell. I took a deep breath, stepped out the door, and didn't look back. The calls kept coming, desperate pleas for help that I no longer felt obligated to answer. I had made my move, exposed their deceit, and now it was time for me to rebuild my life away from the lies and pain that had consumed me for too long. After leaving my marital home, I spent a restless night at a friend's place, my mind racing with thoughts of what I needed to do next. The morning sun brought clarity and determination. It was time for the final confrontation. I arrived at the house to find Eric and Julie waiting, their faces a mix of anger and confusion. I was ready, holding the divorce papers and the evidence of Eric's infidelity. I prepared myself for what was coming. Julie was the first to break the silence, her voice full of scorn. So, you've come crawling back after embarrassing us like that? I met her gaze, not backing down. I'm not here to crawl. I'm here for a divorce. Eric, who had announced our divorce just a day ago, suddenly tried to backtrack. Emily, can't we talk about this? It was a mistake. I cut him off, holding up the evidence. Save it, Eric. Your mistake wasn't just a one-time thing. It was ongoing and well documented. Julie scoffed, trying to take control. You think you can just walk away and leave us with nothing? You're nothing without us. I placed the divorce papers on the table. Actually, you're the ones who'll be leaving with nothing. According to our prenup, Eric owes me $200,000 for his infidelity. Eric's face went pale, and Julie's eyes widened in shock. As they scrambled to respond, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. This was at the end of the lies, the deceit, and the pain. You can try to fight this, but the evidence is clear. I suggest you pay up and move on, I said, my voice steady. Eric looked defeated, and Julie was speechless, her usual bravado gone. Without saying another word, I turned and walked out of the house, closing the door behind me with a finality that felt like freedom. The calls and pleas that followed fell on deaf ears. I had closed that chapter of my life for good. In the end, they paid. Eric had to borrow money from his parents, but I didn't care where it came from. It was a small price for the betrayal, but more importantly, it was closure. As I sat in the lawyer's office signing the last of the papers, I felt a sense of peace. The journey had been painful, full of betrayal and heartache, but I had come out stronger, more resilient. I walked out into the sunlight, a free woman, ready to start anew. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. After all the darkness, I finally felt like I was stepping into the light.